How have your parents unintentionally FK'd you up? Mom was very controlling. She meant well, but her overbearing nature only made me a better liar than a productive member of society. Edit. Seems this is not uncommon. I can't speak for you all, but I know my mom loves me. She's just flawed like the rest of us. My attachment style. Can relate. Just from the flip side. I was the elder sister with all the accomplishments. Straight A kid. They paid more attention to my little sister because she was the one that needed more work and focus on their part. She got new toys in exchange for A's and prizes for chores. One-on-one time for homework. And more cool sports to try because nothing ever stuck. I guess they decided I didn't need the extra incentive since I do all the right things anyway. It sucks. Parenting is hard. No one really knows what they're doing and what the effects are until it's too late. If only you were nicer, they wouldn't bully you. Your sister can make friends, so you can too. Why do you have these weird hobbies? No wonder you have no friends. What is it? Are you too lazy or too shy to make friends? Got diagnosed with autism eventually. But that was after 40 years of beating myself senseless over my inability to fit in. Always telling me that the neighborhood kids were bad and I should never play with them. Leading me to become very introverted and shy. Feeling super awkward walking past all the kids who were playing. Then when I was 15ish, parents started asking me why I have no friends. Making me feel like I had a problem and was different. Due to lack of interaction with kids my age, I now avoid conflict and have weak social skills. It took me years of practice to be comfortable with people. Ended up having very good friends in high school and university. But even after all these years, still feel awkward meeting and befriending new people. This isn't the worst thing in the world. But my parents strongly instilled in me the need to care about other people's feelings and kindness. To the point of being overly kind and accommodating. It led to me apologizing too much. Bending over backwards for people who didn't deserve it and letting people take advantage of me. I am proud of being a person that cares for others. But it's taken a while for me to learn how to set boundaries and maintain them in friendships and relationships. I'm working on it. By never taking any problems I had seriously. Getting angry at me when I was having a bad mental health day. And denying that I had depression. You're just doing this for attention. You have no reason to be depressed etc. Even though I was clinically diagnosed. It has led me to never speak about my problems to the point where I have breakdowns in my bedroom and then pretend I'm fine. Believing I'm a burden and that no one, not even my friends, want to deal with me. They never gave me a realistic view of how finances work. By constantly interrupting me when I try to say something. Or talking over me. Or by very obviously not paying attention, listening, caring about what I'd say. I've grown up to be a very quiet person who very rarely makes any effort to say anything to anyone. My mom. By helicoptering me between all of middle school and high school. As a result, I was never able to develop good study habits because I never got the feeling that I was doing it for me. I felt like I was doing it for her. By constantly criticizing me. As an adult, I sit in meetings at work and wait for someone to tell me how stupid, wrong, inappropriate something I said or did was. It's awesome. Thanks for the silver. Reddit friend. Un copyright airing, un copyright AO, and copyright airing, we'll make it. One had an affair. Told me and told me not to tell the other. The other knew and did things like bugged the house phones and had me try to follow them around. Being oldest kid sucked. Completely stuck in the middle. Eventually escaped to the sanity of the infantry. They demand I pay for things, which is fine. In itself. Really, except I wasn't really allowed to have a job until right before I left for college. Basically any gift money I got from relatives they somehow took. Now it's even worse. As I'm unemployed due to some serious health issues. Whenever I hear, you need to pay for that, all I can think is, with what income? Disclaimer. They were never short on cash. This was purely an assert control thing. semi-helicoptering me for far too long. They subtly controlled my life to the point I wasn't able to do a lot of things that were important to me. But it wasn't enough that I felt controlled and wanted to just snap and rebel against them. It took me a long time to start making decisions without prioritizing their approval above doing what I actually wanted to do. So I'm a little behind in a lot of things that are important to me. Because I never felt truly supported and free to develop myself the way I wanted to. When I was a kid, maybe 5 or 6, I was riding in the car with my mom. I was playing with a transformer toy and telling her about it. At some point, she stopped me and said something to the effect of, "Son, do I talk to you about makeup or clothes or anything I'm interested in?" I answered no. And she said, "Then I don't want to hear about Transformers, whatever you're playing with." In that moment, she just wanted me to shut up. BC, she didn't care. But over my life I've realized it destroyed my ability to talk about things I care about with people unless it's someone I'm very close to. So I come off as very boring until people get to know me. Edit. Whoa. Thanks for all the replies and upvotes. I would just like to say, I don't hate my mom or anything. She's a good person for the most part. She just doesn't pretend to care about things. They didn't teach me much at all. I had to learn a lot from my friends. Outside of proper manners. When I was a teenager, my dad would ask me to get him a Phillips head screwdriver. And when I said I had no idea what that was, he scolded me rather than teaching me. He scolded me rather than teaching me. Welp. There's my childhood in a nutshell. My younger sister and I both hit puberty pretty early. We were healthy weights and active, but understandably were tired and had stretch marks. Yeah, no. Like bodies get when they have rapid growth spurts and hormonal changes. Our parents had the genius idea of calling us in one night and telling us we needed to lose weight because we had stretch marks from being growing people. This is on top of years of ridiculous diets and fad routines with no actual nutritional guidance. We would also get in trouble for not knowing how to cook after being banned from the kitchen. Close bracket. What their hearts were trying to say was, we don't want you to have all of the health problems the rest of the extended family has. The actual result is an eating disorder I'm still fighting 16 years after that conversation. They pick on my younger brother now too, and I just want to scream. Hey dad. Maybe put down the chips and eat a vegetable before you say anything about anybody else's body. My parents sent me crazy mixed messages. One day they would be telling me to not give a shit about what people think of me. Then the next day they would be like, don't wear that shirt with those pants. They don't match. People will think you don't have a sense of style. It really f***ed with my nerves. Man. When I was little they had arguments at night. They didn't know I was awake. Telling us we need to communicate more. Then, when we do communicate more, question how we could have conceived of some of the things we thought of. Or when my mother openly said depression comes from a chemical reaction. A moment when I recalled her asking my sister, what do you have to be depressed about? I'm an immigrant living in the United States. My parents tease me all the time about not knowing our history, culture, and speaking our language with an accent. Forgetting that they didn't teach me much about either of them. Most of what I know about our history culture comes from American news outlets. I learned to speak the day-to-day language from them, but learned how to read and write and expanded my vocabulary all on my own. Growing up in the United States without a foundation for my identity really set me up for difficulty. I latched onto anything and anyone who I thought accepted me. It turned out that people were just taking advantage of me. It probably wasn't intentional, but I was never emotionally close with my parents. Edit. I didn't expect this to get over 1,000 upvotes. My parents had good intentions but didn't execute. I understand that they love me very much, but it just hurts me that I can't emotionally open up to them and vice versa. Edit 2. I'm seeing a trend of people talking about how different their relationships with their parents are as they grow older. For me, my parents don't seem to understand that I don't have the same interests from when I was a kid anymore. I have pretty different interests now that I'm older, and my parents don't seem to understand that. They seem stuck on the past, on not accepting the future. I'm not saying my parents are jerks about it, but they are pushing me to do one thing while I'm hiding what I'm really doing. They are really happy with what they think I'm doing, and I'm scared that it will break their hearts if I tell them what I'm really doing. Edit 3. Thanks for 2k upvotes. D, this is the most famous I will ever be. My mom used to tell me I was stupid and useless when she got angry at me. Now I believe in stupid, useless, and can't achieve anything. At least I'm on a good mood RN, or this would have sent me straight to crying lol. Whenever I did anything well, they would squash it. Either cancel my participation in it, or put me down. This was to humble me and make my older brothers feel better about themselves. Autism. Now I'm not as good at self-promotion as I should be, which definitely hurts me in the workplace. For example, when I graduated with a degree in chemical engineering, I got the following feedback. I'm a chemist, so it's the same thing. Me aren't. It's just a bandolier's degree. Not impressed. And we went to dinner at Chili's because there was no wait. It's kind of funny. I'm in my 30s, and if I try to make dinner plans for my family, they still freak out about it. But I did make all of them travel to Puerto Rico for my wedding. I didn't realize until I was an adult myself where my social awkwardness came from. I thought it was just me. Then I took a closer look at how my parents interact with others in daily life as compared to what I was seeing in college and eventually at work, and yep, all the social skills of a bent spoon between the two of them. So I had no one at home to learn from. And while I've largely learned how to fake it, it'll never come naturally. Giving birth to me. My birth father has a whole host of physical health problems that run on his side of the family, and my birth mother has a laundry list of mental health issues that run on her side. They were two of the worst people to get together and have kids. Lack of discipline. Not like punishing me, but straight up discipline. I really struggle to commit to things, follow through, apply myself. Because I always just give up or find myself thinking, what's the point? So my dad basically never interacted with me except to make dad jokes. My mom used me to vent about her problems because my dad didn't know how to discuss emotional topics. She also engaged me in long, boring one-sided conversations that I couldn't get out of without making her upset. And often asked me to go out and do things with her, which again, I couldn't refuse without making her upset. All this when I was already constantly exhausted from school and depression, and extremely introverted. So now I associate relationships of any kind with exhausting obligation. It's a big part of why I've always had difficulty developing a social life. I know this all came from a place of love, which is why I feel bad complaining about it. But it really damaged me. Also praising me for being smart rather than for working hard, which crippled my work ethic. I hear that's a pretty common one. Incidentally, I'm terrified of having kids because it seems like the slightest mistake on my part can FCK them up for life. Kept me sheltered. My parents put on a front that we were kind of a Leave It to Beaver family where everything was perfect. When I went out into the world, I wasn't prepared for the reality of life. I'd learned that everyone was basically good and decent and wasn't equipped to deal with shitty people. Telling me I should work in telecom. I was about to go to a dance with my BF, and I had on a very pretty dress that I felt so beautiful in, so I showed my dad. And his response was, "Doesn't that make you look fat though?" It was apparently a joke, but he knew I was self-conscious about my weight. And I've never felt more ashamed or worse in my life. And I've not seen him the same way since then. Life is fun. My mom did most everything around the house. So when I finally moved out, I didn't know how to clean anything or wash, dry, fold, or iron clothes, cook food, or even use the oven stove. I got an apartment and had to teach myself everything. I went from basically only making cereal and ramen in the microwave to cooking some things for myself, hamburger helper at first. Luckily I found a girl that was very patient with me and helped me with those things. Now we are married and we split the housework. Good on you for wanting to learn. Some people would just find a wife to replace their mother. My mom projected her insecurities onto me. Body image issues as a result. Always was called ungrateful. Now have a complex about accepting gifts, favors, help, etc. Even from my closest friends. On a less depressing note, my mom unintentionally pronounces a lot of things incorrectly. So it is kind of embarrassing whenever I attempt to say something in conversation. Only to get baffled looks that indicate I have been living a phonetic lie up until that point. By staying together for the good of the kids despite not loving each other, arguing at every opportunity. I'm 27 and have no idea what love between partners looks like. I think I learned to be anxious from my mother. Do I think it's my genetics? No. Not really. I think my nature is to be chill. But every time I start to relax and enjoy life, there's a little voice in the back of my head, my mother's voice, telling me I need to get back up and be on guard because I might not be doing things the way she'd want. I love my mom, but she was a very scared parent. And her fears for me manifested as disapproval in many of my activities. They made alcohol such a taboo, untouchable subject in our house that I didn't know how to control myself when I went to college. I was bordering on alcoholic by end of freshman year of college. Somehow got my head out of my ass and pulled myself together. Now I rarely ever drink and never drink to get drunk. No matter how much I tell myself it's okay to be gay, I have this nagging in my head from when my mother would harass me when I was a teen about being gay. She'd tell me I'd go to hell, kick me out of the car, yell at me. Over 10 years later and it'll creep up every now and then and I'll get that feeling of, man, I wish I wasn't gay. I don't know why I get that feeling every few years. I love who I am. But then I get a severe bout of depression and I end up hating myself. They sent me and my siblings to a Christian private school. The ways that school f***ed me and my oldest sibling up cannot be understated. They once suspended my sibling because he figured out the password pattern and turned himself in. Like, he didn't hack it or steal the list. He just noticed there was a pattern to password generation. Confessed he had figured it out. And got a 3-day suspension for his trouble. Whenever I was about to sneeze, my dad would say don't sneeze. I would probably laugh at first, which would stop the whole process dead in its tracks. To this day, however, I can't sneeze if anyone is making eye contact with me. If someone is aware that I'm about to sneeze, or even if the TV is too loud, I have to either walk away from people or pause whatever I'm watching to get the deed done. Thanks, Dad. They f***ed me right over by not letting me express my own opinions of certain topics. I would bring my own opinion to the conversation, then they would belittle me and completely shut it down. They would mostly force a lot of their belief systems on me when I would have an opposing opinion of certain subjects. My dad was a womanizer that used to hit on women in front of me when I was a teenager and was still married to my mum. I had a problem with flirting when I reached adulthood, as it brought back the creepy feeling I had when my dad would do it in front of me. On the plus side, I have never cheated on anyone. Alcoholic father. Codependent mother on him and men in general. Both of them so wrapped up in each other they forgot they had children to raise way more than they should have. Thank God I had siblings and we sort of raised each other. Semicolon. By constantly criticizing me and trying to control me, still, at 27. It's like saying no or my consent or feelings about something doesn't matter at all, which is something I am extremely sensitive to, as I was assaulted a few years back. As a result, I am filled with anger beyond belief towards them. My family had to move really frequently, military dad, and as a result I lost the ability to form genuine friendships because I was so conditioned to have to say goodbye just as we were getting close. After a couple years in college I started to break through it a bit. But attachment never comes naturally to me. Long story short, They and some other parents forced kids in my class to be friends with me. After we moved, my friends cut contact. This gave me severe trust issues, depression, and low self-esteem. So yeah. It is now very hard for me to make friends now.